That's all it sounds, yeah. The meltdown and then
That's what makes me on the phone. It sounds better now. When I brought it in,
another gradual one.
getting ready to
I was born in 1928 in a little community called Salt Springs. Both my parents were railroad people. My father was a track master and my mother was station agent and ticket agent. And eventually then the postmistress, Jack of all trades, Jane of all trades. When I was 4, we moved into the railway station, which was a totally different experience for children growing up. You were the train traffic and the lumber industry, and exciting at times with train wrecks and blizzards and holding up the traffic, and very interesting indeed for a child to grow up in that atmosphere. And looking back, I can see it was really an experience. Our station was in the little village of Salt Springs between Oxford Junction and Spring Hill Junction. It was a lumber depot. They shipped lumber out of there. And of course, needless to say, it was very busy during the 40s and early 50s. It was an exciting era at that time. The post office was in the station, of course, and that was about it, the railway station and the post office. My memories, station memories, include the daily living. Hardly a day would go by but what there weren't one or if not two what we called hobos, hungry people, coming to our door for a meal. And my mother never refused them. Out came the blue plaid tea cloth, and the table was set to feed them, sit them down to a meal. And a comment was made by my father at one time that they were not guests. Did she need to fuss like that? And she said, it may be the only decent meal that man will ever have. And thank God that she was so kind in her heart. And hobos would come, and they were hard times during the 30s. And then during the 40s again, we had wartime. We had the troop trains going, what they used to refer to as on the block, which meant every 15 minutes there would be a troop train go by. And there was a speed limit by the station, and these young men on their way to war, hanging out the windows and out the doors and waving and tossing out. Very often there would be caps on the platform and medals and coffee pot, which we still have. I helped my mother in the office. The post office was open 6 days a week, 8 to 5 or 8 to 6. So I helped her in the office, making sure that the mail was ready to be shipped out at train time, posting all the letters, stamping everything, packaging up the different types of mail, and having it in the mail bag ready for it was called a catch post. You had to put all the mail in that and bag and put it up on the catch post, and for the train went by and scooped it up. And then the the station, I was not allowed to sell the tickets because my mother was the one who had to sell the tickets. But you had to be there when train time, open the station and open the waiting room and close it. Quite a bit of responsibility. And if she happened to be away, that fell to me. So it was interesting. Be a different story today, I'm sure. Everything would be done on the computer today. My father started working on the railroad when he was 15, and he worked his way up to, he got to be trackman and then trackmaster and then roadmaster, assistant roadmaster and roadmaster, and when he retired from railroad to railroad. Then in the early 60s, the station was closed, and my father, they were going to demolish it, so my father bought it and helped refurbish a house he bought in Spring Hill. So that was the end of an era for us, except for me. And the young man that I married, he decided that that was an interesting career, so he became involved in the traffic control system that had been introduced from the American railway. And he became an electrical controller, the signal department. And from there, he transferred to the shops, diesel shops, so as an electrician. So I never really gave up railroading. In fact, I still have my railway pass, which is good as long as I live. I can travel on the CN. And at one time, we could travel on the New York Central with our Canadian National Pass. I don't allow that would happen today, but it was an interesting lifestyle for growing up, for a child growing up in that era. My father loved violin music. He played a few tunes very well and others not so well, but he did love the violin. So friends of ours arrived one evening, came to visit, and brought along a friend of theirs, quite a handsome chap, as I recall. And we had the visit, and he announced that he also played the violin. So the young gentleman suggested that perhaps he could come back another night and bring his violin. Well, the rest of the story was already written. He could play the violin. My father, of course, I had to approve. He was a fine young man and a very good violin player, and I accompanied him on the piano. It was a match made in the violin case, I must say. And should I say love at first sight or love at first note? Maybe love at first note, right? Couldn't have been a better choice. And we lived happily ever after. But the good old coal smoke. And you could hear that train coming, as it neared the station, the bell would be ringing and the whistle blowing and the cinders raining down. The coal smoke is in our blood. I decided I would write down, beginning from when we moved in, write it all down. So that was the first edition, was the station years. The second edition, I'm working on the second edition. I have a lot of family stories and a few ghost stories as well in there. And the of growing up the years and my parents' years. My mother, being the eldest of 12 children, had a lot of stories to tell. And my dad, he had some fine stories of the boyhood years, so interesting. And I just enjoy writing them down, and it takes me back as well. And looking ahead, someone maybe find it as interesting as I do. That would make them dance. They must all be bad, right?